Hi guys. So we just want to say thank you guys all so much for coming. I didn't prepare some big speech because I just don't have the words, but thank you guys all so much. I know everybody here meant so much to him. Rory.
Come on, Molly.
Yay, Rory!
Just want to say hi.
Hi.
This is my son, Rory.
Cheese. Hi, Grandpa.
So this is Grandpa's best friend, best little friend. Anyways, thank you guys so much for coming. I know everybody here has like 1,000 million stories. I want to hear as many of them as we can. I just am really grateful that, I don't know, he is just the coolest guy and that he impacted so many people's lives and that everybody really cared about him, and everybody has such nice things to say about him, and obviously like the best guy I've ever known. So
I love Grandpa.
Well, we'll see if we can make it through this.
Buddy.
Thank you guys for coming. I want to say a few things about my dad. A man with many names. Marc to some, Cubby to others, Dad to some, and Papa to others. And every single one of us loved him with all of our heart. Dad was a sports fanatic. He loved UCSB. He loved everybody. Even once he stopped announcing, he was streaming games. He just diehard Gaucho. And looking back now, we grew up in the Thunderdome, in Rob Gym, running around, causing mayhem, and I thought it was normal. I really didn't know. That's not a normal kid's life. We got so many opportunities to have fun, run around, shag balls, get hit in the face with volleyballs. And I just assumed that was normal. It's not, but it was the best childhood. And as you guys can see, he had a lot of great friends, and you guys are all great friends to each other as well. He lived in the back house of Molly's for the last year and a half, and I believe in the past 10 years that was his best year and a half. He got to know Rory and Avery, and got to spend a lot more time with Molly and I. And we were playing games in the backyard or whatever we were doing. It was great. With barbecuing, and that's all he wanted. He just simple, nothing crazy. Didn't want anything out of any one of us. Just wanted Molly and I and family to be just there with each other. And it's very sudden, but we're just doing what we can to get by and keep memories of him and the good times and try to avoid the bad times. But he loved all you guys, and he looked at both of us, and he was happy to talk to us, whether we were having a bad day, a good day, whether we just wanted to complain, which was quite often, adulting stuff. And he took in Nick and Lou as his own kids, and they've been a great older brother and younger sister that I never had, and they've been super helpful in the whole process. And we just love everybody here. Thank you guys for coming. And can we get a cheers to Dad?
Okay, so long awaited, at least for me, but we are going to have Boomer come up, John Lee, I believe, come up and give us a story that I've been waiting on the edge of my seat for, and I'm not sure how many other people might know this story, but we're going to learn about the origin of the nickname Cubby.
Okay, so this story is for Molly and Andy. And this is for Mark. We watched 1,000,000 Dodger games together. Okay, so we got to go back to 1972. I was playing for the Santa Barbara Volleyball Club, and we were about 9 days out to going to Salt Lake City. And I'm sure I was in Mark's apartment with Drew and Paul. We just got through smoking one of his mystery bowls. And if you were there, you knew the mystery bowl. So I just came out and I says, Mark, why don't you come with us? We have a sponsor. This is going to be a scholarship, Mark. You don't have to pay for anything. I'm driving. I got gas money. We got a big house. We got meal money. You got to come. It's free. That was the magic word. As soon as I said free, Cub stood up and goes, I'm in. So 10 days later, we took off. Me and Tim Bonney were in the front. Mark and John Lee were in the back of the van. The drive was pretty uneventful. We got to Salt Lake City. Everything went as it should. We played Chart House in the finals, but we lost. And the only one that was still happy was Mark, because the scholarship was in full bloom. We had been on the road for 8 days and he hadn't opened his wallet yet. And he's just goes, boom, this is the best trip I've ever been on. So the next day we're leaving Salt Lake City. I don't know how it happened. We run into some guy, and you old timers are going to remember Bob's Big Boy Hamburger. This guy came up to me and just handed me a handful of those wooden nickels. So me, John, Mark, and Dave DeGroot go to Bob Big Boy's for breakfast. So we have burgers around, and we're sitting there, and we got a handful of these wooden nickels. We're all kind of looking at each other and go, what the hell? We leave Bob Big Boy's with 12 hamburgers. So we're back in the van, and we're heading off to the north rim of the Grand Canyon. That was our next stop. I'll give you a little idea how the trip went. Within an hour and a half, Mark and John took a nap. So as the day progressed, this scenario happened about 3 times. They would wake up, we'd smoke a mystery bowl, they'd eat a burger, and then the insults and the pimping from the back of the bus would just start flying to the front of the bus. Me and Dave knew we were outgunned. We could not deal with John and Mark. So, but the good thing was, about an hour later, just like 2 little puppy dogs with a full stomach, they'd lay back down, fart a few times, and go back to sleep. And that's pretty much how the day went. So we finally got into the parking lot at the Kanab Forest, which was the trailhead to the Grand Canyon, and there was this little general store. So I pulled in and kind of made a U-turn so we were facing the general store, and I'm going to let the guy just took a nap come up and finish this.
Boomer doesn't mention that I was trying to read good books and stuff like that at the time, and when we were awake, and Cubby was the instigator, because I was, Mark was the instigator, and he would say, it's time for the 3rd mystery bowl of the day, and we had very fine Turkish tobacco, as I recall it was, and we went into the little general store, and we were no longer hungry, but we were thirsty, and and Mark would go. Mark went into the store. We got him out of the van. He was tough to get a move on. Once he sat someplace, he was pretty stationary, and very happy in his location. And he went into the store. We came back out, and the scholarship had elapsed. The scholarship, there was no longer a per diem that he was getting to, and he walked out of the store and had no beers in his hand as we had hoped, and he was, like Boomer says, he had to confront his wallet for one of the first times of this occasion. And as he walks out, he's shambling, kind of shuffling along the ground. Just defeated because he had to, confront this expenditure that he couldn't master. He comes out and we were all going, hey, Mark, come on, life is good. We're still going. We're going to go hike in the Grand Canyon. We're right on the edge. We're on the north rim of the Grand Canyon, which is beautiful, forest right up to the edge, and he comes up and I say, you look like a little bear cub. The Cubby is a name that some of the Mouseketeers, some of the diminutive Mouseketeer had been named Cubby, but he hadn't been called Cubby. So we're looking. This became just a perfect description of Mark. He was kind of diminutive compared to the rest of us that were middle blockers and tall volleyball players, and he was hunched over, and Miss Bully said, "You're like a little bear cub." From then on, it was Cubby. And if you know Mark, you know that he was good with nicknames. He probably gave some of you nicknames that you've been blessed with or cursed with. And his theme was that my wife likes to recall. He always would say, "Do you hate it? Do you hate it?" And I don't know if he hated it, but it was so appropriate, Molly, that he was called a little bear cub in this land of big grizzlies, that it was appropriate. It stuck. From then on, he was Cubby to everybody that knew him. Some people don't know that his name was Mark, because it was always so appropriate. So I've done very few things in my life that I'm super proud of, but finding that nickname for Mark Jacobs and turning him into Cubby was one of my best moves ever.
Okay, just to wrap this up real quick, we dropped John and Dave DeGroot off in LA. So the last leg of the trip, I made this all in one day from the North Rim to Isla Vista. So we just got through the signals, and of course it was time for the last mystery bowl of the trip. So we were just getting off of Los Caneros and we were going into IV, and I just looked over, I went, "Mark, Cubby, I know how this works. I just lost my first name 3 years ago. I think this is going to stick. Get used to it, because your life is changing by the time me and John and Dave get back to IV." And Marley and Andy, now you know, 50 years ago, your dad left Isla Vista as Marc Jacobs and came back as Cubby. And I miss him.
Thank you. I don't know how to follow that up. Did you want to? Okay. So we're kind of just like open to whoever may want to, like, if they have a great story they want to tell or speak up. I think you have something to say?
I love Grandpa.
Yeah. I think my mom wants to say something, and then if anybody is feeling inspired, just stand up.
All right. Everybody here loved your grandpa too. Everybody here loved.
This is so amazing to look around and see all the different chapters and seasons in Cubby's life here, from childhood and high school friends to college friends to beach volleyball friends to Club Fred to Little League to Wednesday night picnics. I mean, wow. I don't think that this many people would show up for me. So many people loved him. But anyway, I'm going to stop babbling, and I'm just going to say a little bit about the Cubby you didn't see that I was able to see. One moment. I was lucky to have 14 years of my life with him. The most amazing person, gentle, kind, thoughtful, funny, an amazing father. I mean, the product of Cubby is just like the biggest blessing. We had so much fun when they were little. They grew up in the gym, getting their diaper changed under the bleachers, sitting on Cubby's lap at games, being a ball boy and picking up tortillas, you name it. And they can announce just like he did because they know all the words in their head. But I think that Cubby lives on through all of us, and the impact he had on everybody. And I wanted to go towards the beginning because everybody's going to tell the fun, light stories now. Please don't be shy. The stories are what helps him live on. It helps Molly and Andy know him better. And I also want to mention that the guest book is a jersey and a ball back there, so please sign. That's something that they'll be able to, carry with them the rest of their lives. So we're ready for somebody funny.
I think I'm going to lighten it a little bit. A funny story. I played beach volleyball for many, many years and was on the team with Cubby for the Gauchos. And after college, I was playing beach volleyball a lot, and there was the State Beach Open, and Cubby and I ended up playing together. I didn't have my partner for that weekend for some various reason, and I thought, what a great chance it is to have the funnest time. I'll play with Cubby. So Cubby and I play in the State Beach Open. There's Von Hagen and Lang and all the big superstars, John Lee and Boomer maybe, even. But the great thing is Cubby, he wasn't the most dramatic and powerful guy unless you were counting his verbal abilities. Cubby had constant dialogue going, and we, surprisingly enough, were competing against Barry and who was it? K-Spear and Barry, who were a AAA team, and we were playing for 7th place on Sunday. We made Sunday, and Cubby was in rare form, let me tell you. He was, if he put the ball away, if he cut it, if he did a dink, if he did anything, there was dialogue flowing. And of course, K-Spear and Barry, they know Marc really well from East Beach, and I can barely stand up because Cubby has his dialogue going in full bloom. And this was the creme of everything that Cubby could possibly say. A ball happens, Cubby digs the ball, I set him, he goes up the spike, and of course tapes the ball and it dribbles over the net, and K-Spear, who is his good friend, runs up and dives and barely gets it up, but it hits him in the face. And John, what do you think Cubby's dialogue was? 6-pack, my first 6-pack I've ever, and he's pointing at him going, that's a 6-pack, clearly. And I tell you, that was the most fun of any tournament I ever played because of Marc.
Speaking of Cubby's successes, he kicked with us in 1975 after the Pan American Games. I was down there with Rudy Suara. We were doing an article for the first volleyball magazine, And with us were some of our derelict friends who sensed a little bit of a vacation. And so Boomer and Tim Bonning and Jim Mingus and several others went down with us to Mexico City, where the Pan American Games were, and we were Rudy and I were working every day on the article, right, Rudy? And so we ended up sending that in, and then we continued on down south. So we've got some pretty good volleyball players there in that crew with Cubby, and again, he was surrounding himself with nobility. We get down to Costa Rica, and our policy that Boomer and I had established in traveling Central America was always go to a new city, find out where a gym is, where they're playing either basketball or volleyball, and try and get in some exercise, make some friends. So we get there, and the Costa Rican national team in San Jose is practicing. I don't know, Molly, if you heard this story of Marc dominating the Tico team. Okay, so we're down there, and we see this team practicing volleyball, and here we are, all volleyball players. If you know Tim Bonning, you know that he was a player of substance. And Mingus, he had a couple of good tournaments. He was okay too. And we end up saying, hey, can we scrimmage against you guys? And the Costa Rican coach was from East Germany, I think, said, well, not right now, but in a week we have a TV date. We're going to have a televised game. You guys want to come and play? And they called us the Traveling American Students or something like that. We went over to Cahuita on the eastern coast of Costa Rica. Spent a week of sleeping in hammocks and living on coconuts and banana bread. And then came back, and we get there, and there's television lights in Costa Rica when we get back to the game, and Cubby's just go, oh my God, this is unbelievable. And he's got good teammates. We had this one Peace Corps volunteer that was joining our team. So we play this team, and Boomer's pretty much unstoppable. His arm swing was legendary, and they're probably still talking about it in Costa Rica. Boomer had a great game. Mingus was better than usual, and Tim Bonning was good. I was okay. I had punctured my hand opening a coconut, and so it was infected. I could only play with my right hand, but Cubby was on fire. And just like Jay mentions, Cubby's dialogue was very good. He bridged the language gap and translated it into Spanish. And we beat the Costa Rican national team on national television. And after the game, Cubby was standing there, and he just had just lights in his eyes for various reasons, and he goes, "This is probably my greatest moment ever in volleyball, an international victory of some stature, and a fantastic memory." And I'll always remember that moment when he embraced that big win. So I don't know if you guys have heard that story before, but it was fabulous. We went out and we each had a half a beer.
Anyone else? John Lee?
I can go again.
John Robs?
Is having a live mic around John.
I just got to say one more thing about Cubby. His dialogue was great, but it was never malicious. It was always in good spirits. And like I was saying with K-Spear and Barry, they were laughing as hard as anybody because, the thing about Cubby's humor, it just poked fun, but even the opponents saw the humor in it. They saw the good-naturedness of the way he was and the way he delivered it, and it was just a wonderful ability that he had to be satirical, but yet, never taking offense, unless it was John, I
guess. Anyone else? I know there's some more stories if we want to hear them. Kathy?
First of all, I'm Kathy Gregory, volleyball coach at UCSB. And what I would like to say to start with is that what Cubby had, none of us, not one of us here had what he had. And what he had is that everyone liked him. Everyone liked him. There's never a mean word was ever said about Cubby. Can we say that? I know I can't say it about myself, but I know it can't be said about everyone else. So to be so lucky that we met someone that influenced everybody and made everyone happy and smile, and he made our life so much better. That's what I appreciate about him. But what's great about why I'm probably one of his closest friends, and now all these guys are going to say, well, what do you mean, Kathy? You were one of his closest friends. They're already thinking that, you know, the egos on volleyball guys. First of all, he was the announcer, and he announced our games. And for 38 years, I got to sit next to him. And I'd call a sub, and he'd always say, okay, Kathy, go get him. Yes, okay, Cubby, thank you. So he gave me the energy to coach for 38 years. I love him.
Thank you, Cubby. All right, looks like we got Bruce. We got Bruce. You can't cut Bruce off. Next time.
So I'll tell us a little story, a family story about Cubby that's not volleyball related. So Cubby and Skip and Bobby Garcia and I worked together down at the boathouse in Dana Point, and we all ended up moving back to Santa Barbara. And unfortunately, during the fire, Boomer and Cubby lost their place to live. And we had an extra guest room out in the back of the house, and Kathleen, my wife, and I said, well, why don't we let Cubby stay there? And there's a few things that have happened in the time that Cubby... The first thing was, we can't remember whether it was 9 months or 2 years that he stayed there, and everybody has a different story how long he was there, and somebody figured it out today. It was because I didn't charge him any rent. All he had to do was every Wednesday, he went to the old butcher shop and got chicken breasts and made chicken dinner for the family. And that was it. My daughter, who was here earlier, said the one thing she remembers most about Cubby, she was 10 at the time, and she said, Cubby came home one day and he said, Whitney, I met a girl. And Whitney is 10 and went, well, so there's lots of girls. But no, he had met his future wife that day. So when we were living there, Cubby had met Amy, and then we all ended up being in the wedding. Whitney was the flower girl, Shane was the ring bearer, and his shoes were too tight, so he walked up there in his socks. But it was a great wedding. And then along with names, my other son, Corey, was standing over in the corner. Kathleen was pregnant with Corey, and Corey said, thank God Cubby was living there, because my wife thought about naming our new boy Elvis. And Cubby said, no. And he looked at little Shane and said, can you imagine walking around and saying, this is my brother Elvis? So those are some stories non-related, and we loved having Cubby with us that whole time, and our whole family is indebted to his humor and love. So now I'll turn it over to Boom.
Okay, so we're talking about living situations. I had the privilege to live with Cub in 4 different places. Or the misfortune, however you want to look at it. But we lived in this place on Islay. It was called Hotel California. Anytime we had a driveway that went from like here to those palm trees. Any volleyball tournament, there were 7 vans parked in there for the weekend. So it was me, John Lee, Lynette, Big Daddy, and Cubby. So John and Lynette were in the bottom floor, and we had the upstairs, and we had the dormers, we had the roof. We had a bedroom here, we had a bedroom there. Right in the middle, we had this little section. And that's where we put Cubby. So Cubby put his mattress in, and he couldn't even close the door. So that affectionately became the Cubby hole. And it was, every morning you'd walk by, you just go, hey, Cub.
He was paying half the
Yeah, of course he was paying half the rent. What's new? But that's just... I just had to say something about the Cubby Hall.
You know, when I met Cubby and he was living with the McKeels, the first thing that stood out for me was how amazing he was with the kids. Like, he was just fitting in right there with them, and that played out through his whole life, raising Molly and Andy, and they are as witty as he is and was. They're as kind and generous as Cubby, and that's all I have to say.
Just really quick, I recently started playing pickleball. I'm sure like 100% of you also play pickleball. But I just want to say that all the Cubbyisms, I have converted them over to pickleball. So we're still having roofs, and all of those things live on, and everybody just looks at me kind of funny, but I don't care. So, you know, it is what it is, and that's just a way to remember him. So.
I went to high school with Cubby a long time ago. And after hearing these stories, he was one of the best people to enjoy a Mystery Bowl at that time that I knew. And I'm sure you all know he was a raconteur. So I'm in my early 20s. We've all been out of high school about 5 or 6 years, and we're drinking and, you know, enjoying Mystery Bowls late into the evening, about 2 o'clock in the morning. He convinces me and another guy who went to high school to race in the middle of the street, like about 100 yards, to see who's faster. So we go out there, we're blitzed, obviously. We complete this race and we look over at him. He's falling on the ground laughing. Laughing that he made us do this, because he was going up to the other guy and saying, hey, Chris is saying he's faster than you. He's coming up to me and saying, I just talked to him over there and he says he's faster than you. And what could you say to him when he was laughing like that? Just a classic character.
Anyone else? Anyone interested in KP? 1 second, Grammy. 1 second.
I gotta say a couple words. I can't go by without saying this. Cubby, the only guy when he announces games, got a red card. He kicked out. He kicked out. Yeah, kicked out of the basketball game. Yeah.
Suspended from basketball.
Yeah.
There you go.
Wow. That's tough. All right, here.
There you go.
No, Boomer was the announcer for the basketball games, and he was always known for giving shit to the opponents. Al Skates would recruit him to Chuck's just to give shit. He'd never play him. He just had to get on the team to give players. But he was announcing a basketball game, and he gave the refs so much shit that they kicked him out of the game. He got a red card and got kicked out. It's the first ever. Yeah, no, he did. Yeah, he just said you're blind. He's the first guy to ever get kicked out of a game, not be an announcer. It's funny. So that's it.
All right, good. Get it.
Well, I'm older than most of you, but we all want the last years of our lives to be some of the best ones. And so I just have a little story. Once everybody kind of moved to Monrovia, well, Molly and, Oh, I'm Brenda Warbelow, and I am the ex-mother-in-law of Marc. And the great-grandmother of the two little babies running around. Anyway, we ended up, because they had a bigger house and three of us lived down here, we would drive up there for holidays and so forth. So I got to talking to Marc regularly on those occasions and telling him how envious I was that he was enjoying this time with his kids and his grandkids. And he agreed, it was wonderful. But one thing I saw one time, and that was Rory, and he ran out the back door of Molly and Nick's house and ran across the yard and driveway and knocked on the door. Pop, can I come in? Pop, can I come in? And Marc would come and let Rory in. And I saw one time only, I noticed, the two of them sitting on the couch in front of a ball game on TV. And it was the cutest thing. And he agreed that this was the best time of his life, enjoying those kids. And of course, Molly and Andy too. So I appreciate everything you've all said, and it brings back some memories. So thank you very much.
I just want to add that anytime my dad had a game on that he didn't want to watch cartoons with Rory, he had to stop at the door and agree that they weren't going to change the channel, and he had to sit there. If he wanted to hang out with Papa, he had to watch the baseball or the football or whatever was on. And every time I came in to get Rory at the end, he'd caved. The cartoons were on, and my dad was watching the game on his little phone, just like the Dodgers or whatever. And I'm like, Dad, like, you told him. But he's like, no, now we're watching Mickey Mouse or whatever. So
He didn't raise any dummies.
I can relate to that. I'm a papa too. I'm up here to represent the boys from Club Fred, since no one else has come up to do it. Cubby brought his game down to East Beach, or first to Fred Brown's yard, and then to a good 20 years, I think, before he moved out of Santa Barbara, to Club Fred every Monday afternoon, every Friday afternoon. And he kept up that same heckling. You always wanted to be on Cubby's team, not on the other team. And the one move that Cubby had that I don't think any other volleyball player did as well was this one.
Yes, sir. All right, Jer. Tell us. Jer.
Hello, folks. Well, I had the really good fortune of. My name is Jerome. No, my name is Jerry. And I had the good fortune of growing up with Cub, basically. I can't remember which year we met, but we shared a lot of great times in high school, college, probably junior high. I can't remember about elementary school. Played a lot of sports together. Little League teams, Pony League teams, basketball. Anyways, Marc has one great story that I can relate to you guys from him, and that's about his dog, Jess. You guys remember Jess? And Jess, we had the good fortune of Marc had Jess the first part of Jess's life, and then sort of turned Jess over to me for the second part of Jess's life, so we shared that very deeply. But the one story he related to me, and probably some of you guys were in the story, but he took a trip with some guys up north, and Jess went along. And I think they were close to the Redwoods, and they pulled over to camp, each night. So they camped, and they got up in the morning and had breakfast and hopped back in the van. So they're driving up the road. It had been about 20 minutes or a half hour. And I think Marc called for Jess, hey, come on up in the front seat, look out the window, you know. So the guys in the back said, he's not in the back. I thought he was in the front. And they go, no, he's not in the front. And they looked around, Jess wasn't in there. And this is way, I don't know if you guys remember this. This is way up north somewhere, you know, wilderness, campgrounds, a whole bit. And Jess is back at who knows where, right? So they turned the van around, and you can imagine the ride back to the campground. And the one thing that Marc said, which was something I'll never forget, he said they pulled into the campground, and Jess was in the middle of the road doing somersaults. He was just jumping up and down doing somersaults. You know, just so damn happy that his peeps came back to retrieve him. And, you know, that's something I'll never forget. And I love the way he said that. So I think about that for quite often for some reason. Just watching Jess doing backflips and front flips. It was great. So anyways, I wrote a little poem for Marc. I'm gonna have a hard time getting through this too. I get very nostalgic, but God, I knew Cubby for a long time. Jeez. Try to get through this. So here's my tribute to Marc. My dear Marc, brother Cubby, a wonder and a wanderer of the brotherhood, where magical moments will endure, a celebrator of life's existence, in inviting all peoples of the earth to the scene. Friendships never ending while inspiring us to be passionate through our journeys. The Cubster believed in the art of the laugh. We all know that, right? Mr. Cub understood the power in unity, and he loved the competition in all forms of games. He felt the peace that the spirit brought to the world from the games and to our species, Homo sapien. In short, he wanted us to do good, do better, strive on, to engage and to love, and have a heck of a lot of fun doing it as well. So brave on, our dear brother. Your legacy is intact. Shalom to you and your beautiful family. And always try to remember, stay by the river.
Anyone else interested in a story? Louisa?
I'm going to say something for myself and my brother Nick, Molly's lovely husband. We've been tag teaming Avery's nap, so forgive us for doing things solo. A story so much as a decade of love really is the only thing I can say. For those of you who don't know, my brother Nick and Molly have been together since high school. So I was 13 when I met Pop, and you know, for a kid who was kind of going through it at the moment in time, Marc was this solace of love and support and family that Nick and I were so fortunate to have bestowed onto us. I knew Pop, of course, as Molly and Andy's dad, but he very quickly became the father to Nick and I that we didn't necessarily expect but couldn't have lived without. And the last years of Marc's life we all spent together laughing and celebrating and watching sports. And unfortunately for Marc, he watched sports on his phone while Rory watched Mickey Mouse, and he will always be the person who took me to my first Dodgers game. He will be the person who taught me to laugh and to smile and to not take life so seriously. And he just has left such a legacy, and of course it's so emblematic of everyone who's here. I can speak for both Nick and I when we say that our lives were just so immensely changed by Marc in the best way possible. And we just really, really miss him, and we love him, and cheers to everything that he stood for. I think that the part of his person that I will always carry was his level of selflessness and his humor. So I hope to live up to his love and kindness every single day, and just carry that forward and the memories that he gave us. So cheers to Marc. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Lou. Do we have anyone else who would like to say anything? You don't have to. Don't feel like you have to. Well, anyway, I do appreciate everyone coming out. It just shows that the amount of people that he touched and loved. It means a lot to my sister and I to have over 100 people just drop whatever their plans were and just come on out and support us. And I mean, he was joking until his last time. And with the nurses he met 10 minutes ago, he was cracking jokes, and he wouldn't want this to be a big sad event. He wants this is a party. This isn't a sad funeral. This is a party. And he loves everyone, and I appreciate you guys all for coming out.
Just really quick, there are little programs on the tables. Please take one. There are also some cookies. Catering was El Tacarito, and they were so great. So if you ever have an event, please take them. And thank you, like Andy said. And just like when Andy and I were growing up in the Thunderdome, I just remember always begging my dad to say the final word at the end of the game. And Andy and I would just come on the microphone and be like, "Thank you and good night." So thank you all so much. He loved everybody here, so thank you.